It's time to welcome to this programme Jane Badler, who's going to sing for us, and Paul Grabowsky, who has a band, and they're going to do a song called What a Mess I've Made.
1, 2, 3.
You'll never know, in a room you'll never go, full of all the things I own. I can barely close the door, I can barely see the floor to find my secret drawer. And I just keep thinking, what a mess I made. There's a star in the sky that reminds me of a guy who loved me to get high. There's a leaf in the tree that reminds me of me falling to be free. And I just keep thinking, what a mess I made.
What a Mess I've Made, and that's Jane Badler, and she was performing live on today's music show with Paul Grabowsky playing piano, Jeff Hughes on guitar, Frank Desario on bass, and Dave Beck on drums. Jane, thank you very much indeed, and welcome. That's Paul, isn't it?
That is. I'll answer on Jane's behalf. And she says, Andy, thank you very much for your kind words, and wishes to convey her felicitation.
Thank you. Absolutely. I think my mic went a little dead there for a moment.
Okay, right.
It's very exciting to be here, and thank you.
But I hope, Paul, that you were impressed that I recognised you by your intake of breath.
Yes, it's rather spooky, actually, Andy. I'm not sure if I should be happy about that.
I don't know.
Not.
I think we've done these interviews from studio to studio too often now. That's clearly what it's saying. I will come back to you, Paul, because I do have questions for you too. But now that we've got Jane there, maybe we should start with you. And let's talk about the character that sings these songs. Is it really you?
Well, yes, of course it is. I think it's an aspect of me, and it's kind of the internal darkness inside of me that I'm externalizing. Mm. Which we all have.
I suppose we do. Jesse Jackson Shepherd seems to have excavated most of this internal darkness for you.
He has. I think he's got a bit of it himself.
Right. But he's very good at writing from, well, I was going to say a woman's point of view. Is it your point of view, do you think?
Well, when we first met, he had written a lot of songs which I sung, and then we've known each other now 4 or 5 years, and about 2 years ago he started writing just for me, and we've spent a lot of time together, and we workshopped songs, so we became quite close, and it became easier for him to sort of write for me.
Yes, of course, and I suppose also if he thinks that he is writing for a character as much as a singer, that gives him license, as indeed it gives you license as well, to go perhaps a little further or be a little more extreme in the point of view.
Absolutely. I mean, you can go as far as you want, really, if you're creating a character, and it's not just from your own personal experiences. So you can theatricalize it, and you can take situations that are seemingly unreal and make them into songs. The
songs are about fantasy, I suppose, to some extent, aren't they? They're about glamour and sexuality and desire and attitudes to monogamy.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that, for many of us that are in long-term relationships, and there's the quandary of how one exists in those boundaries, we all have fantasy lives. So this character sort of explores the fantasy lives of someone, of a certain age, who's had a very full and rich life, and she finds herself at crossroads.
Yes, that's right. It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I was talking to some friends last night about Mad Men, the TV series, and I suspect in some ways, that's a kind of fantasy life for a lot of people who watch it. Now that none of us is allowed to smoke, and we're not allowed to consume vast numbers of martinis at lunchtime.
I know. It feels a bit like a police state, actually.
Watching other people doing it, they're sort of doing it for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually feel a bit like this is a bit of a Mad Men-esque character that almost could slot right into Mad Men. As a matter of fact, I asked my agent in LA if he could get me a guest star on Mad Men.
Ah, yes.
I feel like I'm living Mad Men.
Well, the sleeve design, all of the artwork sort of has the kind of clean lines of Mad Men on it as well. Perhaps it's time to talk about your one of your other alter egos, which is Diana in V, which is possibly where most of our listeners, or some of our listeners, certainly will know you from if they watch daytime television or hang out on YouTube a lot. Perhaps tell us how you got involved in this kind of cult show.
Well, hard to believe, but it was 25 years ago that I was cast as this character called Diana, who was sort of the lizard queen in a show called V. And at the time, it was just another job, but it became one of the most widely watched miniseries of all times, all over the world. So through the years, it's now been 25 years, it never died. And I have a huge following on Facebook, and people just refuse to let it go. So I was brought back last year. They brought it back on ABC in America. And I went back to America, and I reprised my role after 25 years. And I went back to America and was there for 4 months shooting this nighttime series called V again. So it's been a pretty extraordinary journey.
And did you find that it was easy to sort of slip into the role again?
Well, I'm a different girl now. I was very young, and so I played her as a young woman, flirty and constant with this huge sexual appetite. And what happens in American television if you're over 45 is you can't have a huge sexual appetite. So I actually became a character
Never stopped Joan Collins.
No, a little bit. Oh, exactly. But she wasn't. Was she in her 40s when she did that show?
Yeah, and the rest.
Oh, yes. I love that. Anyway, so I was kind of stuck in a dungeon trying to regain my former glory the entire series. It was a bit frustrating, actually. Because I wanted my former glory.
But do you find it difficult to sort of move around? You say you're known all over the world, or Diana is known all over the world. I mean, do you have to disguise yourself?
Oh, you're gorgeous. No, not really. Especially not in Australia, where I walk very freely. But the funny thing is, I was in Madrid recently, and there I'm very recognized. And lots of fans very excited when they see me, and they give me flowers and little stuffed toys, stuffed lizards. But but here I'm for some reason.
They just happen to have them on them, do they?
Yes, I always bring a little lizard in my purse. I never know who I'll meet.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
What's your inspiration, would you say? I mean, do you have role models that you look to? I mean, presumably not Diana.
Yeah, I do. I like to look for people who continue to reinvent themselves and do exciting things at all times in their career. You know, a lot of people just stop, but there's people that keep going. I mean, even someone like William Shatner, as strange as that is, who kind of has moved into hit television series and records with young artists. And whatever you think of him, he's usually successful. And Grace Jones is a bit of a strange role model, but she's in her 60s wearing G-strings on the stage and reinventing what the 60s mean. So,
and she's still scary, isn't she?
She's great. I love Grace Jones.
I suppose, I mean, talking of people reinventing themselves, I mean, you're in the company there of Paul Grabowsky, who wears so many different hats, and I'm just talking about the musical hats. I'm
wearing a lizard on my head.
That's why I like him so much.
I was hoping you would be, but I was talking to Archie Roach last week, you know, and he was talking about his collaboration with you. And how important it was to him, and I've seen you on stage with the young Woduluk, and I've seen you in so many different contexts. And here's another one which doesn't seem to have a great deal to do, well, certainly not with Archie Roach anyway. How did you end up in this one, Paul?
Well, Jane and I have been friends for a long, long time. I've known Jane for about 20 years and have followed her career with interest. And when she started to work with Jesse, you know, she told me about these amazing songs that he'd written, and I went and heard her performing with Sir. And Jane was on the search for somebody to produce their second album, and I was making various suggestions. And then I went to hear them one night at the Spiegel tent in Adelaide, and I really, all of a sudden, really understood what this was all about, and felt very inspired by what Jane was doing, and particularly the songs themselves, which I think are really very clever and beautifully constructed songs. And so I said, well, what about me producing it? And it just progressed from there. So what had already been a very good and close personal friendship turned into a very rewarding professional one, and it's been a lot of fun, I must say.
And you played vibraphone as well, didn't you?
Yes, well, I'm a renowned vibrophonist, as you know. And if you don't know, you do now. A sort of a 3-martini vibraphone player, I would say.
There's nothing that man can't do.
That's right. But does a project like this, Paul, seriously allow you to not necessarily bring out the darkness within you, but does it allow you to do things on the keyboard that you wouldn't otherwise do? I mean, there were some little riffs in that song that I thought, I wonder whether Paul has played those sorts of riffs in any other context.
Well, probably not. I mean, you know, all music interests me, Andy, and you know, I'm always learning new things. I think what was the real challenge and the fun that I had with the album Tears Again is the actual production side of things, which for me really means an arranging situation. I was able to take the songs and create out of them what I think the songs were essentially trying to express. And there is something about the character that Jane develops within these songs which alludes to, you know, sort of the Valley of the Dolls, California in the 60s, a lot of the pop music that I really love, particularly Bacharach and that kind of stuff. And there is a sound where they were very unafraid to use all sorts of interesting instrumental combinations in creating those perfect little pop songs that Bacharach and Hal David wrote. The production ethic on those things is really quite extraordinary, and I wanted to try and kind of concoct a version of that for the modern day, and I therefore just tailored my kind of piano playing to suit that situation.